Just please don't rely on it for your future savings. How about this? Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte every day. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering in. Ride your bike instead of buying all that gas. These changes alone can save you thousands a year. Thousands. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feed that piggy bank. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Everybody, let's go, let's go. Ho, ho. Welcome, everyone, to West High School Spring Fling. Hey, where we at, Steve?
All right, I've gone through all the tracks. Just move through the beats. Do your thing.
All right, everyone, let's hear it for West High's own Brooke Turner, a.k.a. DJ Hook.
Scratching at my first school dance takes confidence. So we're getting into college. I've got what it takes. Okay, I went through the practice sessions. I slept good. I feel good.
We will now begin the test. Please take out your pencils.
I got this.
We're all good at something. Maybe it's breakdancing or skateboarding or video games. Whatever you're good at, you had the skills to make it happen. And those same skills will help us get to college. Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org.
I've got what it takes. So do you.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Statewide Sports Talk starts here. Border to Border with Matt Josephs on W291CL Lakeside Richmond and WURV HD2 Richmond. Bold takes, no filter. Lock in on 106.1 ESPN.
This is Sports Center.
I'm Doug Brown. The Knicks and Pacers go back to Indiana for Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals tomorrow night. 7:30 Eastern for the coverage on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Knicks center Karl Anthony Towns says they'll need to play the same way they did in Game 5.
We have to. It's we have no more room for error. It's our backs against the wall, and it's every game is do or die. So we don't bring that energy, we don't bring that execution. Our season will be over.
Karl Anthony Towns. A woman is accusing Pelicans forward Zion Williamson of sexual, physical, emotional, and financial abuse during their 5-year relationship. Williamson started dating the woman during his freshman year at Duke in 2018. Baseball today, the Reds beat the first-place Cubs at Wrigley 6-2. 2-run homers for Tyler Stevenson and Jake Fraley. The Angels activate outfielder Mike Trout for tonight's game against the Guardians in Cleveland. He'll bat 5th. Trout has been out for a month with a bruised left knee.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance flexes to fit your business's needs. From quick repairs to adjustable coverages and even payment options, Progressive Commercial makes it easy to get what you need. Quote today in as little as 7 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Welcome in to Raisin Hail here on 106.1 ESPN. Alan Sandidge hosting, Jordan Bondurant on the dials as we come into this, the week of the OTAs, right? A lot of storylines to cover in this next 30 minutes, so we won't hold you for that. Notable absences. We'll start there because that seems to be the talk of every team, right? When guys don't show up for OTAs, they're voluntary. I don't understand why everybody gets up in arms about it, but Coach Quinn was pressed about it a little bit because there were 3 guys that were noticeably not there. Wide receiver Terry McLaurin, defensive back Marshawn Lattimore, and offensive tackle, newly acquired offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil. Jordan, you're in within 30 seconds. Are you concerned with the idea that these 3 guys did not show up for OTAs on the 28th?
No, I'm not concerned in the slightest, only just because I think we've covered the fact that, at the end of the day, it is voluntary. So, and even John Keim mentioned that in some of his stuff this week, just particularly with Terry McLaurin. Like if Terry starts missing stuff, missing like mandatory minicamp, and then starts to miss, the very beginning of training camp holding out, then that's a bigger issue. I think, that this is something that he did before in a contract year in Washington. So not a huge thing for me that he was absent. For Tunsil and Lattimore, I think for Tunsil, I understand that this is something that he did even in Houston, didn't go to OTAs or anything in the off season. So, that is, for that to carry over into Washington, I'm not really all that surprised about. The Marshawn Lattimore thing. Obviously he was sort of the weak link in the secondary last year when he finally got on the field after being hurt for so long throughout the course of the season. Then, I think it of the three, it was probably more important for Lattimore to be there, getting reps in and working with his coaching staff and everything else than the other two.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's just because I haven't been necessarily that concerned due to the fact that the Commanders had such a substantial amount of money for their salary cap. But yeah, Terry's due for a contract. I highly doubt it would be messy if we're going to go there. Looking at SpotTrack.com, they're talking about his estimated market value is $31.1 million, which would put him behind Jamar Chase, who obviously just got the $40 million contract. And this is average salary. So average salary of 31.1 is what they're saying for Terry McLaurin. Puts him behind Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and DK Metcalf. Not sure if I want Terry getting paid less than DK, but it's the typical length for those are 4-year contracts. Dan Quinn was asked about it a little bit, but he kind of danced around it, not necessarily in the sense of he didn't want to answer, but he was more or less like, that's an Adam Peters thing, and he trusts Adam Peters to get it done if it comes up, or he trusts Adam to do the right thing by the players, and the players trust Adam Peters as well. And so he kind of, like I said, I don't want to say he dismissed it, but he wasn't as concerned with the idea that Terry, Marshawn, and Laramie are not at OTAs. He also emphasized that they've been in touch all season or all off season, especially Terry McLaurin, because he's such an intricate part of what they have there as far as the culture. And I would say at this point he is without a doubt the leader of that locker room. And that's even with Bobby Wagner being there. The fact that Terry's been pretty much here from day one, I think he has basically just by default become the leader.
And Terry's a career guy. So, I don't think this, unless he has a season where he completely falls off a cliff or he gets, multiple injuries or something, like I don't see the Washington front office not trying to make something happen.
Yeah, and so, again, with that, we'll keep an eye on that. Again, it's kind of my fault for not paying attention to that particular aspect, but I just being in the locker room all last season and the way everything is going, I couldn't possibly envision a scenario where, one, the franchise wouldn't do right by Terry, and two, Terry would make it ugly. Like, it's something that probably gets done pretty quickly. Coach Quinn also emphasized how all of them needed to kind of step away a little bit from the game, enjoy the offseason, decompress. I thought that was important for him to bring that up because burnout's real, and it's not something we talk about in professional sports. It's not something that comes up a lot either when we're talking about the highest level of professional sports, especially like the NFL. But could you imagine the drive that it takes to come into another season after having so much success? I know the Super Bowl is right there, but you gave it your all last year and you didn't get to the Super Bowl. So now you're going to be asked to give even more to get over the hump because, this I always call it the encore is harder than the actual original hit. Right. So I think Coach Quinn's approach to handling, I wouldn't call it pressure per se. I would phrase it more as the expectation into this season, because last year there was no expectations, but there was still pressure, right? Once they started their winning, the pressure was on to keep winning, to get to the playoffs, to beat the Lions. Once you beat the Lions, pressure's on again to beat the Eagles. So I wouldn't say last year they didn't have any pressure, but there were definitely no expectations, right? Nobody expected them to beat the Lions. Nobody expected them to be in the NFC Championship, but there was still pressure, if that makes sense. So
the expectation was just to not stink.
Yeah. And
don't suck eggs.
Yeah. So this year you're coming through and there's expectations along with the pressure, and it's uncharted territory for a lot of guys on this roster, right? Not necessarily for like a Jaden Daniels per se, in the sense that he experienced success in pressurized situations. Back when he was in college, he used that to help him in the NFL. But some of these guys, it was probably their first big game in 4 to 5 years, right? So, how do you adjust to that? And I just thought it was just interesting that when he was asked about it, he emphasized, like, look, I wanted the guys to step away, but not forget the goal, right? There's a method to it. You can take your walk, but you got to come back to work, basically.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of an overlook or inside look at the mentality of the Commanders. They are creating an atmosphere where guys can succeed and also fail without extra pressure, without extra extremities or any situation where you feel like it's more going on than what's actually in front of you. So
I think there's a misconception where it's like, oh, the NFL season's only 17 games or however long it is, and so they don't realize a lot of the time that it is a full-time 12-month 7-day a week job for the coaches and a lot of the star players. I mean, we heard last year stories about Bobby Wagner being in the facility lifting weights at like 3:30 in the morning before on practice days. So, you and I were both college athletes, but I've never been
I was never that high.
I've never I've never been an elite athlete, so I can't really comprehend sort of the mental aspect of it, of what goes into not just a regular season, but eventually like a playoff run, or, that idea that, hey, we're in contention to go to the postseason. Now we got to build on that. And so, I think for Quinn, making sure that after the letdown of coming up short in the NFC Championship, making sure that guys take that time to themselves, that they can get away. Don't think about football. Don't think about conditioning or working out or anything. But like you said, go take that walk. And then in May, June, you gotta lock in. You gotta get redialed up and ready to rock and roll for another season.
Yeah. Just again, creating an atmosphere where I feel like it's enough pressure playing for the Washington Commanders with expectations. Yeah. And I want to emphasize that, with expectations coming into this season. They don't need to add on to that. And I think he's setting the tone to not be a part of all the outside noise.
Right.
We got a Sam Cosmi update. This is important. It's not a lot, but Coach Quinn said he's hitting all his marks, which, having had an ACL injury myself, I can say firsthand that means rehab's going well. He's at this point, because this happened back in January, we're in May. He's probably moving around, strengthening it a little bit, not a whole lot of cutting or anything like that, but the process of, especially with the guy his size, the process of building that strength back into that knee is going to be important. Now, with that, obviously comes questions about where are we going as an offensive line, as a unit, while we wait on Cosmi. And given what Coach Kingsbury said and Coach Quinn was hinting to, I'm going to go ahead and just stamp it here in May. Connerly Jr. is going to be the right tackle. I really think it's the athleticism that sets him apart from the other two options. And the fact that, at some point they would, because he's so young, they would want to transition him to left tackle anyway. But he still presents the most versatile offensive lineman that they have. And I think they'll start him outside. And if they need to move him back inside, that's fine. But for right now, because of that athleticism, I think they'll keep him outside at the tackle position.
Yeah, and like you said, this offseason it's been sort of uncharted waters in a way, and so they have had to try and maneuver their way with and finagle the roster to a point where, okay, now we know, if Cosme is not hitting his marks, if he's going to be delayed a little bit longer, who can we plug in there? Who can we rely upon? And like we talked about last week, who's a multi-tool guy who maybe we can throw from the opposite side of the line into that position, just as sort of a little piecemeal thing where you just kind of put it together. He can play the position, and then we go from there.
And with that also comes the potential for the offense to open up. Coach Kingsbury, and I keep wanting to say Cliff, but I don't know him like that to call him on a first name basis. But Coach Kingsbury was asked a question about the offensive line and whether or not it's an asset this year, something along the lines there. And I'm not going to read the entire quote, but he said that's where it all starts as a play caller. Like for him, the ability to have the entire playbook open and feel comfortable with whatever you call always makes it easier when that group is really good. And he didn't throw shade at last year's group. He said last year's group was tremendous for what they were asked to do and playing with a rookie quarterback. But he's hopeful that the pieces they've added this year will make them that much better. And so my mind instantly went to Laramie Tunsil and Connerly, right? Your two tackles, like potentially your two tackles. Now they were both quick to say nothing set in stone on the offensive line or pretty much anywhere on this team except for what you would expect. Like obviously the quarterback set in stone. Wide receiver 1 is set in stone. Yeah. And then the left tackle is set in stone.
Tight end 1.
And tight end 1 is set in stone. Yeah. But as far as the offensive line, is Laramie Tunsil, and then again, I'm speculating Connerly will be right tackle, but they've left the door open. It could be anybody. They truly believe these guys are interchangeable. And like we had talked about before a couple weeks ago, this idea of positionless football on the offensive line, I think is a true thing. I'll go out on a limb again and say that Biadish will be the center, obviously. But his role as a leader on the offensive line, I think, is going to be super important. And the chemistry between him and Jaden Daniels will be super important as well. And so, again, we didn't get a ton of, like, intricate details. So we got to kind of pick apart what they're saying in their statements. And I know the media up there tried their best to poke and prod and get some things out. There was one incident, though, with a question that I wanted to spend some time on because it got me really fired up. And I'm not doing this show, and we're not doing this show to be Washington Commander fanboys, right? I will give them praise. If you followed us throughout the season, I'm critical when I need to be critical. If you listen to me anytime on any of our shows here locally, sometimes I'm probably too critical. But I'm not going to be a fanboy for any team, even my teams. I'm not going to be a fanboy. Maybe the Atlanta Braves. But anyway, he was asked about them being the hunted now. And that is something that I typically will go to as well, because there are times where teams don't know how to be the ones that people are trying to beat. They're better off being the ones that are trying to beat the teams. And he didn't even let the person finish the question. And again, it got me hyped, like just like listening to him talk in the quote. So I wanted to make sure that I brought this up. He said, "We are always the hunters. Don't go there. I know I'm cutting you off right before you get started. We don't have to like get to the hunter versus the hunted or any of that stuff. We are always the hunters. So we've got a lot to prove. And so for us, that is what hunting is. The hunter is a mindset. It's an attitude of absolutely delivering and going for it. But that's who we are. And that doesn't change anything done previously. It's just how we get down." And I was I was getting hyped listening to him.
This dude is a perfect fit.
No, and it's the perfect message to send, because if the team takes on the personality of the coach, if we are to believe that the team takes on the personality of the coach, everything Dan Quinn has said since he's got hired has been perfect. It's the right thing. Even down to him being like, look, if guys want to, not come for voluntary workouts, especially the ones who've put in their time already, it's fine. Relax. We know what we have to do. Stay goal oriented, but live your life a little. And even when they were going into their like bye weeks, even the message during the bye week, they had 3 straight losses, and he's like, look, we'll go in, we'll watch some film, we'll continue to do the things that we've always done, and tweak some things. Right? There's always room for improvement. Like, all the messages are the right message. Telling your team that just surpassed all expectations whatsoever last year, that one, what we did before still matters, is good, is great, but it doesn't change our position.
Right.
And he's right. It doesn't. The Commanders, no matter what people might think, they haven't done anything to make them better than the Eagles on paper or on the field yet. They haven't done anything to make people think that they would go back to the NFC Championship or get to a Super Bowl. They've got people thinking they'll get to the playoffs. I mean, Vegas
SportsCenter just showed they showed a graphic, the betting odds to win the NFC, and it was like plus 850 for Washington.
For Washington, yeah, exactly, right? There's still a level of non-belief, and that's fair, because again, you surpassed expectations last year. That's perfectly fair. Take the fan out of it. That's perfectly fair. But your coach is sending the right message right now.
Yeah.
We have improved, yes, but our position has not changed. Therefore, the mentality has not changed. And so that hunter versus hunted thing is something I might even bring up during training camp or when we finally get a chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
Just to see if that's the driving message, because it was the driving message in Dan Quinn's statement and even in Cliff Kingsbury's statements, where he talked about them getting all the primetime games and having the opportunity to display their talents on a bigger scale, something everybody looks forward to doing, but also realizing that this opportunity does not mean that you have arrived.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a great message to send to a team where, coming off of a season like last year, you always worry about a letdown or heads getting too big.
Yeah, and it seems like so far, and I mean, we've had very limited in-person interactions with Dan Quinn, but it seems like everything that he presents on the outside to the media is backed up and supported inside in the locker room by the team, by the front office. And, I've never gotten the impression that Dan Quinn was, never a no-nonsense, never not a no-nonsense guy. And, that's just how he's carried himself. And, I really liked, I really like how he's fitted into this system in Washington and really turned out to be the guy that the franchise essentially needed to help, like Harris said at the start of last season, to rewrite that new chapter, flip the page. We're moving on. We're moving forward.
And there's also some emphasis on the fact that they're returning the majority of their staff. Obviously, Cliff Kingsbury is a big part of that, but I kind of marked it down as like I wrote it down. I want to make sure I say it right, because I always mess this quote up. Reach one, teach one, right? The mentality that you have guys that you've reached, they understand what you want, they go out and they teach their peers, right? He's got his core from last year. They established that. One of the like examples of that is how much Jaden Daniels has started to take charge of the offense. Something that both the coaches talked about was a significant difference in, obviously, rookie Jaden Daniels and him coming into OTAs day one, moving guys around, telling them what they needed to do and what they should be doing, like more of the director rather than one of the actors. And that's a huge jump for a second-year quarterback. Also something positive, because as a coach, and Cliff talked about this as well in some of the words he said, But as a coach, you come into a system on the second year, you have to evolve. You have to. And you know, it was brought up, Cliff has to really evolve because they've got film on Jaden Daniels from his rookie season, but there's years of Cliff Kingsbury play calling tendencies and things like that. So for him, he's got to work even harder because it's not his second year in the league. And It's not his second year calling plays. So he said, you know, it makes it easier when you're comfortable with the quarterback having mastered the system. And I thought that was a very key word. Like they feel like Jaden has mastered the fundamental elements of the system. Now we can get funky. Now we can do some cool things.
Yeah, Jaden had the learner's permit at the start of last season, and he's graduated to a full-on license. The reins are off. He can drive the car if he wants to, and I mean it's going to be interesting to see how they retool this offense. Like you said, they've got years of previous play calling strategy and that sort of thing for Kingsbury. And they have the film on Deebo Samuel too, so they can already sort of know, you know, what kind of potential gimmick plays they can put together, or maybe not a gimmick play, but more like a gadget play of some kind, where you work Deebo in on the edge or something like that, and then try and go from there and battle that. But
and you'll be happy to know, Commander fans, Deebo was there. No issues there. Him and Jaden Daniels are working their chemistry. Deebo, I assume by the quote from Coach Quinn, Deebo has already looked at the playbook and understands what's expected of him. Coach Quinn said he did ask him, was there anything in the playbook that doesn't particularly appeal to his skill set that he would like to see implemented? And he said no. And Coach Quinn said, all right, well, if it ever comes up, let me know.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've talked about that on several occasions, the openness and the camaraderie and the collaboration between staff and players is not, I think I asked General Manager Peters about, you know, how do they go about finding out or vetting some of the players that they're scouting or trying to bring in for free agency. Are players included in that process as far as feedback on personalities? And he said, yeah. He's like, they always have an open door about stuff like that. They don't ask them about scouting, but if, you know, they know the guy personally, they'll get their insight on it to see if this person would be a good fit. I thought it was interesting. Again, you got a vet like Deebo. He's looked over the playbook and you're like, is there anything in there that doesn't quite fit? Because both Cliff and Dan Quinn kept saying guys got to get in where they fit in. That's part of the culture. And they want to utilize everybody's skill set from top to bottom. And he stretched it to the coaching staff. He says not just the players. His goal, one of his goals this offseason was to improve the coaching on the Commanders. And he worked on that. He said himself that was his own personal goal, but he said it's an organizational approach. Like the scouting's got to get better and improve. The game planning's got to get better and improve from the coaching standpoint, and the players have to get better and improve from the athletic standpoint. And so, you know, he said the same way he asked the coaches for input, he's asking the players for input too, because comfort is a big thing. And again, it sounds so corny and cliche, but they're creating an atmosphere where I think everybody feels like the morale's high. Put it that way. Guys, the morale's going to be high for guys, and with that comes a certain level of freedom in how they play. And I say this from experience, playing or being under the umbrella of good coaches. When your coach is comfortable with you, or you feel comfortable that your coach isn't gonna like not even yell at you, but there's like this trust between the two of you, you play like in your mind mistake free. So it's less reactionary and more of just playing natural, right? So I'm not gonna use Lattimore. Let's Jaden Daniels. Like he's comfortable with his coaching staff. The coaching staff is comfortable with him. If he needs to make an audible, he's not second-guessing himself. If he needs to make a throw, he's not second-guessing himself. And if a mistake happens, which we saw some of that last year, they're all collaborating. There's no like dysfunction or nobody's losing their cool. they work together and figure it out. Because again, a lot of coaches are dependent on their players, and a lot of players are dependent on their coaching. So it's that collaboration is something I don't think the Commanders have seen amongst staff and players in quite some time. And it just keeps looking more and more like an organization that's ready to position themselves to be winners, not just to win now or take advantage of the iron being hot or this proverbial window, but an organization that has a long-term game plan and they're executing step by step, or as Coach Quinn would say, they're hitting their marks. Even going into year 2, they're hitting their marks and positioning themselves to be successful.
Yeah, and one of the things I think about, I had a couple of thoughts, and I'll circle back to Debo, but one of the things with Jaden I think about last year and that sort of coachability sort of thing and that dynamic that they have between the players and the coaching staff when, Jaden was running with the ball and, diving headfirst when he got hurt in the Carolina game. Like, I wonder how much nuance there was to those conversations between Jaden and his coaching staff, where they're like, hey, we're not trying to discourage you. We're not trying to change your game and how you approach it. We just want you to be a little smarter about how you position yourself when you're out there and you take it upon yourself to be mobile. And so, I think we saw that growth from Jaden towards the end of the season. You saw him, trying to slide a little more than maybe try and dive
out of bounds.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. And then I had a thought about Debo, sort of maybe this could be his sort of Zach Ertz arc when he gets to, now that he's in Washington. He's grinded, he's played, he's proven himself in the league and everything. He's sort of on the back end of his career. He comes to a place where he knows, where you said you gotta fit in to get in, or know your place basically. And Debo has already looked at the playbook. He doesn't have any issues. He knows where he fits into this offense. And I think he can be like Zach and just have fun. Like, play the game. Like, play how they brought you here for a reason. You know what they're going to use you for. Utilize your skills as best you can and just have fun with it.
And that was part of the evolution of the team from last year to this year, the new pieces, right? And I think the word used was complementary pieces. And it's something we had talked about leading up throughout their transactions in the offseason. Like, hey, you traded for Deebo Samuels. That tells me you're looking for a more you're looking for more hammer than nail, right? You're looking to set the tone with some physicality. You go out, you get Laramie Tunsil. He's not soft. He puts hands on people. He's actually a pretty decent run blocker, and that's probably underselling, but he's a phenomenal pass blocker. But it gives you more of a presence, right? More of a physicality and a consistent physicality, right? These guys are consistently physical, and that's to complement guys like Terry McLaurin. You go out and you get you draft. I'm gonna jack his name up, but you draft the running back who is known to finish runs, right? He's really athletic, but he finishes runs. Complimentary piece to Jaden Daniels, I think. I mean, Brian Robinson finishes runs, but he doesn't have the athleticism, I think, to complement, or the burst to complement Jaden Daniels. You get two big play guys in the backfield, it kind of opens it up a little bit, and he can catch out the backfield and do a couple of other things. Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech, they talked about him and his athleticism and the speed that he brings, a different dynamic. And I know there's been a lot of talk about where is he going to fit in and things like that. He's so much better an athlete than McCaffrey. He's also so much better a receiver than McCaffrey. McCaffrey, I think sometimes people forget, is a converted wide receiver. I think he was a quarterback originally, and he moved to wide receiver. So he's still got to learn. He's still green. He still has playmaking ability, but as far as like the athleticism, Like Lane's off the charts. You get him the ball in space, and you got something, man. You get him the ball in space.
I think he'd be a perfect fit on either the kick return or punt return.
Yeah, Brian Mitchell was there as well this week to work with the returners. I would imagine they work together as well. Something Coach Quinn had pointed out, but just again the toys that you have.
Yeah.
If you're Cliff Kingsbury, it's a lot of problems, a lot of reason to be optimistic. The last thing I wanted to say before we get out of here is unfortunately the one negative that came out of this particular OTAs, Jaden Daniels is not the Jack Jaden Daniels that you've seen floating around in those pictures. He looks more muscular, he looks more solid, but he's not David Boston jacked, as some of those pictures on Twitter have shown. But there's, again, a ton of optimism out of the Washington Commander camp. The tone is right. The tone is right for an encore season. It won't be easy. It's never easy the second time around. But I wholeheartedly believe that as long as guys stay healthy, and with the depth that they have, that they're headed in the right direction.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Yeah,
we got a hot mic here on we got a caller?
That's my bad.
Yeah, that's all right. We got a caller?
Yeah, we got a caller.
Okay,
Our first caller.
All right, cool.
It's Spider John.
Hey, Spider John.
Hey, guys. Man, I tell you what, I really enjoy listening to y'all. You guys got great perspective and good information, and I just want to let you know how much I was enjoying it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, man. We do our best to bring you guys as much information as we can about the Commanders, and again, thankfully, they don't have too much coach speak, so it's easy to kind of decipher what they're trying to say.
Yeah, well, I just enjoy the local aspect you guys bring to it, and talking about the Braves and things that I think most people in Richmond are interested in. It's really great, and you and I commiserate on the Braves because I'm struggling every night.
No, man. The bullpen is. I actually went to the barber yesterday, Spider John, and he's my brother, and he pointed out I have a significant amount of grays in my hair now, and I said, yeah, it's baseball season.
I know, Bummer. I can't stand Bummer, and I can't stand Pierce, and oh man, those guys drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And Dylan Lee. I miss. I wish they'd bring Kimball up. He's been pitching well down in Gwinnett.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see what they do with him. At some point, they got to give him a try because nothing else is working.
Exactly. He's one-run game.
For sure. Are you planning
team is the Braves.
I was going to say, are you planning to continue your Washington Commanders fandom?
Oh yeah, definitely. Hey, I went up with my son last week to watch the Washington and the Braves play. I sat right next to the dugout, talked to the coach, and had a nice time with my son Zach.
Yeah, Nationals Park is a really nice venue to catch a game, and our DJ from Classic Rock, Kobe, he went out and watched it with his family, and he was saying how it didn't seem like there was a lot of animosity between Braves fans and National fans. And I said, no, it's actually where my son saw his first baseball game, and he had a Ronald Acuna jersey on, and they gave him a certificate for his first game. It was like the coolest thing. I was like, man, if we were in Philly, we'd have never got that. Not an opposing team.
No, it's totally. Yeah, I could root for the Nationals when the Braves aren't in it.
Yeah,
I could never root for the Phillies. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just can't stand them. Man.
Yeah, that was a fun series, though. Even though we came out only with one game, it was a fun series.
If you go up to Washington again, I've got some tips for you that I'll give to you on some really good places to stay. Just 2 blocks away from the stadium, and it's pretty reasonably priced. And then a couple of fantastic restaurants that we went to. One Italian place we went to for breakfast had the best coffee I've ever had in my life. And then it was a great strudel, and it was really good. So
yeah, anytime
I'll tell you about it the next time I see you.
Anytime you got suggestions for places to eat, pass them my way. I don't discriminate. I'll try it.
Yeah, you got to try it. This one place was I'm not crazy about the fact that it was a Palestinian won't get into politics. We didn't realize that we thought it was Lebanese, but it was a Palestinian restaurant. But, man, the lamb and the beef and the goat was amazing. So I'll give you those names of those places.
All right, pass them my way.
All right, buddy. Y'all take care and have a good weekend.
All right, you too. Sprinkle a little Braves in there with the Commanders talk. It's fine. I love the fact that we are
our first caller, like our actual first like genuine caller.
He called one time when you actually the time you went to get the tacos and you didn't actually. Get
get the tacos.
Yeah. It was the time you left early. He called in.
Okay,
but I like that Spider John called in because I think there's optimism, rightful optimism on the Commanders and even the fans to an extent. It's been a while since they've experienced expectations, and so I'm hoping that people are still patient with the process because, like we discussed in the first part of the show, nothing has changed in their position.
Right,
they're better. There's expectations, but they're still the hunters, right? Like they have not arrived yet, and
don't put on the burgundy colored glasses.
Yeah,
it's okay. They may not be as good as they were last year. If that's the case, it's not the end of the world. We'll commiserate together at the end of the season if they go 6-11.
Oh yeah,
but sure. at the heart of it, I think for most fans, it's a reason to be excited. And the loudest voices are probably going to be the bandwagon fans who just started following the team towards the end of last year. But, I think the true fans, I say true fans, but like, you know what I mean? The fans that have been around for ages and ages, they've seen the Super Bowl wins in the past and they've suffered through the Dan Snyder era. So, I think the expectations are tempered to say the least. And yeah, I mean, it should be a lot of fun to speculate and even be high on the fact that, they could potentially win the NFC. They probably won't, but they're one of the top 3 teams, at least the odds makers think they're one of the top 3 teams in the NFC.
Yeah. And I agree with that. Although I would probably place them higher than 3rd. At the end of the day, though, the Commanders are in a position to build off of what they did last year. And like I said, I feel like they got the right guys to do it. And I'm looking forward to this season. Next week, we will have I'll reach out to Lake Lewis and see if we can get him back on so he can kind of give us some insight on what he thinks has come out of OTAs because they've got a couple more days of OTAs going on. In the meantime, I think as we get further and further into the offseason, we'll dive a little deeper into the air quote system of the Commanders, what they did personnel-wise last year, what we could potentially see from some of these guys going into this season. Again, like Jalen Lane and some of the other weapons that they drafted as well. All right, it's been a great show. We've got the Atlanta Braves, the aforementioned Atlanta Braves, coming up at 6:59 is when the broadcast will start. I think first pitch is at 7:15. So that will be a lot of fun, as well as they've got their series up and they're trying to get over 500. In the meantime, check out all of our shows coming up next week. We've got Fits the Bill from 8 to 10 in the mornings. We've got Matt on in place of Bob from 4 to 6, Border to Border. Bob will actually be making some appearances next week.
Right.
Yeah, he's going to call in and do it from the home studios, which is good. It's good that he's recovering from his back surgery. We look forward to having him here on a regular basis. You've been listening to Raisin Hail here on 106.1 ESPN. We'll catch you guys next week.